with, we have our chairman. Thank you so much, Mr. Bandulegodage, for joining us today. So with that, I would like to kindly invite you to just share your thoughts and then welcome the guest of the day and of course the audience as well. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Kaushali. Your Excellency, very great privilege to welcome you today. On behalf of Roshan Egodage, our CEO, Board of Management and APIT staff, also not forgetting our students, very warmly welcome you once again. A very, very special day for me also, being a chairman of APIT and, welcoming you, because it's much easier for me to have some overall picture about the today's event, because I had the great opportunity to work with you many times previous years. So, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation also in spite of your very busy schedule, Excellency. From APIT, we always encourage students to learn. That is so it says, is not a surprise for us. But at the same time, we inspire love to learn for each and every student. We know all the students will end up as they are, showing their academic excellence, qualifications, saying that I got a graduation. But APIT expectation is beyond, madam. APIT always intend to build leaders with right leadership skills. So that is one important thing that I have to share with you and for the audience. That is why we have invited you. That is why you are here today, madam. I personally know your leadership skills. Basically, myself and Rohanta very well know your interpersonal skills. So more importantly, and how simple and how down-to-earth personality you are. So these are very important things for our students and of course all people to know. This is my personal view. Today, you will represent Sri Lanka, to UK with your leadership skills. So our people, our students, will waiting for your ability and your to explore your really interpersonal skills for them to build up their lives further, to build our leaders further. So from our side, congratulations your new appointment. And up until we meet you again at the question and answer session, we wish you all very best session. And also we request all our students to get the maximum out of your Excellency with your expressions and the discussion on the go. Thank you very much, Excellency.
Thank you, Bandula.
Thank you so much, Chairman. And with that, I would actually like to welcome our family joining from Staffordshire University as well. Here we have some of our members from that corner, affiliated university. So while welcoming them on board as well, over to you, Dr. Rohanta, to start off with the session.
Thank you, Kaushali. And thank you very much, Chairman. I think it's an honor for me to introduce Her Excellency Saroja Sirisena, a very good friend of mine, knowing her for a long time. I mean, as soon as she was highlighted to be a speaker, I got calls from all over the world saying that they would like to listen to Her Excellency. And in fact, people from the Staffordshire University in UK called and said that they would want to listen to you. So it's actually a real honor to have you, Your Excellency. And just to give you a quick view, Her Excellency was appointed to the UK in March 2020. And before that, she served in Australia in concurrent accreditations in Slovak Republic, Slovenia, Serbia, and Bosnia, and the permanent representative to the United Nations and international organizations in Vienna. Her Excellency's track record is like outstanding. Like she was Director General of Public Communications, a spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, DG for Economic Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, DG for External Relations of the Ministry of Economic Development, Director South Asia and Director Consular Affairs and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So she's having some exceptional skill where she was headhunted to the Ministry of Economic Development from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in terms of developing the economic diplomacy by the Minister Basil Rajapaksa. Her overseas assignments include Consul General of the Sri Lankan Mumbai, Minister of Permanent Mission Sri Lanka to the United Nations, Minister of Consular to the Sri Lankan Embassy in Brussels, First Secretary to the Sri Lankan Embassy in Paris, and Sri Lanka's Permanent Mission in UNESCO. Her Excellency has joined the Foreign Service in 1998, and she was born in Colombo, studied at Devi Balika Vidyalaya, and in fact, she has studied with one of our very senior lecturers, Lakmali, which Her Excellency first, when I spoke to her, highlighted. And, she has represented school in track and field. She's a graduate of the University of Melbourne, Australia, and École Nationale Administration at France. What is really significant about Her Excellency is that, if you look at her background of what I just now read, she's so outstanding. But if you meet her, she's very, very simple, just like what Bandula was saying. And that's the beauty about her. And we are actually privileged and honored to see you in such very high places. And thank you very much. When I just sent a WhatsApp message and said, Your Excellency, would you mind speaking to the students? Within 2-3 minutes, she said, obviously, anytime. So that is love for sharing, making other people better, working with her to look better and grow. So, Your Excellency, over to you.
Thank you, Rohanta. I'm actually very humbled by your words about me and Bandula as well. It is my privilege to share this platform with you and Bandula and all your students. Because you and Bandula are like family. We work together. We've grown together. As you said, I've known you. We've known each other for a long time in humbler positions, in less important positions, and worked our way up through the ladder. So it's been a lot of hard work. It sounds nice on paper, but it's a lot of hard work and a lot of team effort, for each of us to get to our respective destinations. We don't do this on our own. It appears that we have been working ourselves up to a particular position, but in order to be successful in any project that we undertake, the first thing is the team that supports you, the team that you are part of, to make any goal a success. And it is those goals that actually build our career one by one. They're like the building blocks of our career. So each team is no less important than the other, whether it is a team in your school, a team in your college, university, a team in your family, and a team in your workplace. So these teams we have to cherish and nourish, actually. We have to value each team member, even if it is the person who fetches you a cup of tea, or the person who actually supports writing your report, the final report, or making a presentation. So, all these members of our teams, respective teams, are equally important towards our journey. So it is, as I said, when you asked me, yes, of course, I was going to speak here, because it's nice to be amongst friends and to share experience, which is again part of our journey. So I'd like to begin by speaking to the students. I think these are all graduate students. I understand these are MBA students. So you've already done one course of study, and perhaps some of you are already in the workplace, I hope. That already gives you a view on some of the things that I'm going to speak about. I'd like to give you a little overview of what the UK, the United Kingdom, means to Sri Lanka in economic terms. First of all of you know that we have a very close relationship with the United Kingdom. We share a lot of history, colonial history as well as post-colonial history. So we have inherited certain things from the United Kingdom, some good, some bad, some not, some that we appreciate to some extent, some we would like to change, some we would identify as colonial hangover. But I think some of the things are perhaps more advantageous than not. And to begin with, I think some things that we have kept back from the UK would be perhaps considered the backbone of Sri Lanka's journey, post-colonial journey, would be our health and education sectors. I mean, I don't know whether you all know that our education sector is 75 years old, so it actually predates independence, the free education system. And the health sector is also completing its 7th decade next year. So these two are perhaps the strongest pillars of Sri Lanka's success through various turbulent times. The governments, successive governments, have been prudent to maintain these pillars, not just to maintain them, but to actually fortify them and make sure that the benefits of these two sectors percolate to every single level, and every person, every citizen of Sri Lanka has access to this. Because without these two, whatever success, economic success we achieve, the citizens cannot actually have access to the success. You know, however much our GDP increases or the per capita income increases, people would not be able to have access to that, and there would be the inclusive growth would not arrive, it would not be inclusive. Our growth would not be inclusive without people having access to these two important pillars. So UK, as it in economic terms, represent it is our second largest export destination. So we do approximately $1 billion worth of trade between import-export with the United Kingdom. And it's in our favor, in Sri Lanka's favor. So we export more than we import. And it is also the second, it's the largest market in the EU. Of course, the United Kingdom has left, is in the process of leaving, has left officially. And now they are in the process of identifying the fundamentals, the agreements towards this Brexit. But it is also, up until this year, part of the EU. They are the most important export market for us. And it is also, the United Kingdom is also home to one of the largest Sri Lankan expatriate communities outside of Sri Lanka, and the best established. I mean, I'm sure if there's anyone who has links with Australia, they would want to dispute that, but it is still the oldest and the best established large Sri Lankan community outside of Sri Lanka. So and they are all established in a manner that they can assist Sri Lanka. They are connected to Sri Lanka, and I've discovered this in the past 9 months that I have been here. And their interest in Sri Lanka is very high. So this is another advantage of the United Kingdom towards Sri Lanka, apart from the traditional colonial Commonwealth links. We'll rephrase it now as Commonwealth links, post-independent Commonwealth links. And the UK, in some years, has been our second largest generator of tourism. Sometimes it's number 3, sometimes it's number 2. So it's up to us to, when we regenerate, to try to make it, it doesn't matter whether it's number 1, 2, or 3, but to make the numbers increase. And also to make the numbers be more significant towards our tourism market in terms of value. Because Sri Lanka is a country that cannot benefit from quantity of tourists or exports. We have to make it high value, whether it is an export, whether it is a service. We have to ensure that everything we do is in the high value bracket, because our resources are limited, our workforce is limited. So every single element has to be at the higher end of the spectrum, because that's how we will get maximum advantage. I mean, a good example of higher value is perhaps our tea industry. Again, I'm sure Rohanta and Bandula, you'd know more about the figures on this, but I know we have lost out in the tea export market in terms of volumes, but we still remain one of the highest exporters of black tea in terms of value, which again is an advantage because we are adding value in our country. So this is finally, I think Sri Lanka is realizing its potential. Its potential is not to export in large volumes. We don't have the labor for that. We don't have the resources for that. But what we do have is quality. Our labor is of quality. Our infrastructure is of quality. And these elements provide for not a cost for our services. So the UK, in terms of exports and tourism, it's also an important investment country that is investing in Sri Lanka, because the UK views Sri Lanka as this high value destination. Because we've been able to attract high value service oriented companies into Sri Lanka. One would be one astounding example is HSBC. HSBC, I mean, all of you are familiar with, they've been in Sri Lanka for over 100 years, and they have continued to expand their operations in Sri Lanka, not just in the banking sector, but also in the services sector. So this is, again, something that we need to be aware of. We need to be aware of our potential, and we need to be able to exploit it. And another such high-end company that is with us is the London Stock Exchange Group. This is through Sri Lanka's IT sector. Again, ICT is an area where we need to move forward, forge ahead. It is not as known as the ICT industries of other countries or neighboring countries, but it is known in the right sectors, in the right quarters for what it represents. That is, again, not the lower spectrum of things, not where we have large numbers of people to monitor and operate call centers, but in the knowledge area. So it is actually the knowledge process that we can contribute to. So there again, we need to be aware to develop our human resources, to orient our human resources into those areas. I mean, it's great to have a free education system where we churn out X number of graduates every year, but these graduates have to fit into the workplace. They have great potential. They have already gone through 15 or 16 years of education, but they need to then be able to fit into a marketplace, to the workforce that will give them the satisfaction of contribution, and they also to be remunerated as to their value, because they have a right to remuneration. That is where the frustration begins. So we don't all have to go abroad to realize our value. We can bring that value to Sri Lanka and still contribute to the global workforce from Sri Lanka. Another area in terms of our human resources with the United Kingdom, we've played an important role, is the health sector. We have been linked. Our health services in the UK NHS have been linked for postgraduate training for doctors and employment opportunities for doctors. But now this area has opened up for other areas of medical health workers. That those are nursing and caregivers and paramedical staff. So these are areas that are unexplored by Sri Lanka. Other countries are taking advantage of this. It doesn't mean that we need to take all our nurses and pack them off to the United Kingdom. It means that we can train more people in these areas instead of sending off unskilled workers to employment in certain regions. We can actually give them a little bit more schooling, 2 or 3 years more education, train them properly to fit in to a higher end, higher yield marketplace. So these are some of the the changes in the thinking patterns that we have to accommodate. We also need to reorient ourselves to understand, no, we're not losing this labor force. We are actually enriching our labor force in the next generation. Their lifestyles are going to be enriched because they will yield a higher remuneration. their families would be better off, because they are actually having exposure to a better lifestyle. And thirdly, when they come back, if we send them for a fixed period, they will come back with a wealth of experience in another system that is also working quite well, to impart that into our system. So our system can actually be world-class. So in my short tenure here, I have also understood that the United Kingdom is interested in trading with Sri Lanka, is interested in investing in Sri Lanka and doing business with it. Because in this current scenario of well, we can't even say post-COVID just yet, but we are preparing for post-COVID. We have all recognized that the growth, the post-COVID growth will commence in Asia. In fact, I read somewhere that 50% of the growth would take place in China. So Sri Lanka's proximity to this region and the fact that it serves as a gateway to this region should be our advantage. And we need to be geared to actually take advantage of that. We have to have our fundamentals ready for that. And don't forget, we are also the first country in our sub-region to embrace liberal economic policies. We introduced liberal economic policies in 1978. So this should be another strength for us, that we have a culture of doing business. We have embraced a culture of doing business early enough so that there's time for that culture to take root and for our people at all levels to be familiar with a market economy. So these are some of my initial thoughts. Rohantha, would you like to come in at this point? Mute.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think it was very, very interesting on how you laid the platform for today's discussion. Let me go into a few Q&A and then I'll open it out to the house. Is that okay?
Sure.
I need to share the screen, Rajiv. So, can see the screen, everybody?
Yes, doctor, that's fine, yes.
Okay, thanks. So, your one thought, Your Excellency, that we would like to understand is
one small interruption. You have to stop calling me Excellency, because I did not call you Dr. Atukorla and I didn't call Bandula anything formal, Mr. or anything. So I think I'm Saroja from now on.
It's very difficult to, I mean, it's actually difficult to say that, but then, you know, I have to respect you. So,
Rohantha, the protocol per se will continue in that way. After the discussion, we can call anything.
I mean, thank you. So actually what we want to know is how has the pandemic kind of affected the trade between, I mean, the UK and like Sri Lanka? Is there an impact?
Yes, there is. I mean, there was an initial impact, because the first thing is our apparel exports were hampered initially. Oh. But then as the first lockdown ended, the shops started reopening and things started to normalize. I mean, we still are about 20% behind in some of the sectors, but we also we registered 38 of our companies with the NHS, the National Health Service of the UK, to provide personal protective equipment, because this is again goes to the strength of our workforce, our strength of our labor, that we were able to reorient them at quite fast. You know, we were able to reorient the workforce almost immediately, to go from manufacturing what they were doing to change to the PPE. So that was the first thing that happened in Sri Lanka. And through the High Commission, we linked to the buyers of the NHS, and listed our suppliers, because there were certain qualifications that we need to have, certain certifications. So with that, we were able to help our apparel industry. And of course, in terms of tourism came to a grinding halt. It's the second time in 12 months that our tourism industry suffered. But the second time, of course, is a global halt of tourism. But so these are the first two contributing factors to our economy. Trade also is linked to tourism, because as we have exposure to each other's cultures, the trade tends to grow. And we had many plans in terms of investments. All of that had to be put on hold. But exports are still coming in. We had also discovered a few new areas. As people stayed at home, they focused more on their health. The Ayurveda sector opened up. I mean, there was potential for this sector. Ayurveda, wellness. I mean, wellness is an area that we haven't exploited to the full. And we need to ride on. I mean, I know there are trends in Sri Lanka to make our health Ayurveda exclusive, and to talk about the Sinhala, the traditional medicine, as a different product to Ayurveda. But I think there's been a general market space created by Ayurveda, by a number of countries getting together. So we need to take advantage of that. And the fact that Sri Lanka holds itself to a high standard, the reputation is already there. So these two coupled, Ayurveda has a huge space to grow in the United Kingdom, because it's coming into more and more normal medicine. You know, it's becoming a commonplace for people to opt for alternate therapies. So this is another area that has opened up in the pandemic. So it's not all gray. There is a silver lining for us.
Yeah, actually, Your Excellency, when you were saying this, it just dawned on me. Since our exports are kind of skewed towards more the ABSCC group kind of product range, mainly to do with lingerie and undergarment, and it's more fashionable. One good thing that happened because of the pandemic is that we had to change our total manufacturing product mix, and that switch would never have happened if not for this pandemic. So now we see most of the apparel manufacturers have gone into the manufacturing of basics products, so that post pandemic we'll have a more of a range of products which actually will hold a lot of stead in the marketplace. So very rightly what you said, that there is always a silver lining to the pandemic, and we see this very much. I'm so happy that you mentioned this. How do you see the tourism industry panning out, Your Excellency? I mean, what I'm trying to ask is, have you seen that there are some other markets like in Thailand where tourism has started evolving with England, and you see that there might be some kind of a best practice that we can look at?
Well, one thing is starting late. The advantage of starting late, restarting late, would be that we can assess the best practices of our competitors, and perhaps fashion out what best suits us, take what is best for us and what suits our local conditions. And secondly, I think the whole idea of travel would have to change, because we are so used to the instant way of life, and the pandemic has taught us to dispense with that and go towards a more sustainable way of life. So that the sort of the paradigm, there's a paradigm shift in terms of how we look at life, instant versus the more sustainable. So given that, I think something that needs to be looked at is how we look at travel. I think people would take perhaps less number of holidays per year and make them account for more. So there would be longer holidays, but they would be less frequent. If somebody took a 4-day holiday to Sri Lanka on a long haul flight, coupled with 3 other destinations, they probably wouldn't do that in the post-pandemic scenario. They might take a 3-week holiday in the one place. And we have to ensure that it is Sri Lanka that they select. So we have to ensure that we offer that diversity, we market that diversity, and we also market the facilities that we have to deal with a crisis. I mean, 2 things we have witnessed in the 21st century is that crisis, whether it is man-made or natural, can strike anybody. It's not, I mean, I think in the 20th century, crises were confined to poor developing countries, and the developed world seemed to be immune from crises, whether it was man-made or natural. And what Sri Lanka has come out, gained from this, is that the ability to deal with a crisis, the ability to have robust institutions to deal with a crisis, a medical system, a road system, a network that actually helps people, even foreigners. You know, when you're in a foreign country, you need to know that that country has a stable system. If you are ill, there's a system. If you are faced with a natural disaster, there's a system. So these are the countries that will come up to the, like, you know, rise above the average. So I think in the post-pandemic scenario, the tourism industry has to demonstrate its diversity and has to also showcase its robustness in terms of dealing with any kind of crisis.
So do you kind of feel that the people who might come would be a little bit more senior citizens who can take maybe a 30 days kind of long vacation? I mean, do you see that happening?
I wouldn't confine it to an age group, Ranta, because given the changing of the workplace and the number of people, the proportions of people actually incorporating the work from home into their normal scenario now, I think there would be that kind of mobility or like a work leisure kind of scenario if we have robust systems. I mean, for example, good connectivity, high-speed internet connectivity all over the island, even in the remote parts. A good electricity network, good road network. I mean, it would not deter even the younger travelers, because if you have the same facilities as you move around, what is the deterrence? So we need to demonstrate that we actually have those facilities that can cater to anybody who wants to work from home. Or, I mean, that is very much going to be a part of our life in 2021, I think.
I think that's a very, very important point, Your Excellency, because you know, it's not like nowadays you're saying that you're going to work from home, but it's you work from anywhere. You work off a car, you know, you work in an airport. What do you think is going to be the role of a middleman? Because pre-pandemic, there was a situation where most of the middlemen were falling off. They were losing, you know, because people are going more to direct purchasing of their holiday. Do you feel that the British middlemen, like the Thomas Cooks of the world, will again start having a very strong place in the whole structure?
I think so. I think we will bring back the human element, because people, especially in a situation where you have a crisis, you want to speak to a person. You don't want to be sending an email to a bot. You know, you don't want to be talking to a machine or having your queries sieved by a machine into categories. So I mean, it's not going to help you in a crisis. You need to speak to an actual person, and that perhaps also will be our advantage, because we have an educated workforce. We have people that can understand and grasp these concepts quite easily, as compared to our competitors.
Actually, Dr. Bharati, who is at Staffordshire, the one of the very senior people who is a focal point for Sri Lanka, is right now listening to you, Your Excellency, and he actually set up a question last time in the last time's paper on this.
All right.
Whole, I just want to ask you, most of the universities in the UK have operating in Sri Lanka. So how do you see how the education sector will pan out? Because most of them are into like now online learning, and now how do you see that?
Well, I mean, online learning can never replace the actual experience of a university, especially at the undergraduate level. I mean, we would, I mean, in a situation of necessity, we would do that. But I don't think that should necessarily be the trend long term, because as all of us have been through the university experience or the school experience, you know that physically being in a school or a university builds something else. The camaraderie, the team spirit. I mean, elements that human elements that are essential to face the real world. But having said that, we can't just press on the pause button and wait for everything to be normal before we actually embark on study. So online education is brilliant in terms of offering connectivity, lower cost options. So I think it would be very much a part of any program. I mean, there would always be an online element. In the longer term, it could be for the longer term study for people who want to work and study at the same time and not move around too much, and especially when there are restrictions on travel. So I think that's as much as it cannot completely replace the physical experience, it would be a large part of us. And I think Sri Lanka having the infrastructure to the good connectivity and good network capacity, good connectivity to electricity, with all that in the region, I think we would be one of the centers that can actually be used to disseminate such types of education to the region even.
Well said, Excellency. I think I 100% agree on you that in that point, the online is the alternative method for the pandemic situation. That's all. Well said, Excellency.
There's a question coming to you, Your Excellency, saying, I mean, before you took up this position, I mean, you were very strongly into so much of trade-related work, not only in India but also handling the BIMSTEC. Can you throw light about, as to how your early education that you went through helped you in this very multi-skilled kind of job that you are now called to do?
Well, I actually decided quite early that I wanted to be a diplomat, Rahanta. So all my education since age 18 was towards this career. So I think I incorporated as I went along. I studied to be a diplomat. So I decided at the end of high school, or just before the end of high school, I did my O-levels at Devi Balika and went overseas because of the security situation in the country, and sometimes our institutions were not functioning, and we didn't have the luxury of online systems at the time. I actually prepared. I did studies in a field called international political economy, which was quite new at the time in the 90s. It was just being introduced. IPE was just starting to become a buzzword. It was the end of the Cold War, and countries were actually grouping in terms of the political economy and starting to increase their interdependence. So I took up a few courses of study on that, and I also had a passion for language. So I started studying language quite early. I took up French, which is perhaps not as relevant today as it was in the 20th century, because it was known in the 19th and 20th century as a language of diplomacy. So, I mean, newer languages have come up, and more spoken languages are now perhaps more attractive. but I prepared for this job in that way. IPE, language, and a few other, I mean, politics, international politics, because trade does not exist in a vacuum. I mean, of course, informal trade can exist without political will, but in order to actually have formal trade and to make it develop into something significant, the political will is required.
So how is this lady who likes traveling and socializing, how is she managing with the pandemic?
Well, that's something very interesting came up yesterday, Ranta. One of my colleagues, another ambassador here, said that they have started doing lockdown dinners where the dinner is actually going to be sent by the host to you, and with a little instruction on how to heat up, reheat, whatever, and then we all get together on an online platform and have the dinner together. So we spend about an hour and a half together, and we still get to see each other. Conducting diplomacy in this pandemic is not easy, because diplomacy again is a face-to-face exercise. You need to feel the other person's presence. You need to be able to understand his or her body language. But at the same time, we learn to improvise. We learn to cope, and we've done a lot of work online. I've engaged with the Sri Lankan community online. We have even the annual general meetings of associations online, and we've not severed contact. That's the main thing, to keep in contact.
Thank you. So do you miss Mumbai?
I think I will always miss Mumbai. It's one of those vibrant cities in our region, because it's almost, you feel as if you're home. That, and I think it offers that experience whilst being as close to home as possible.
So can you tell us a little bit about what this gentleman told you? I robbed all this from your Facebook.
Well, that's Ravi Shastri, one of India's well-known cricketers of yesteryear. He's, I think, also the current coach of the Indian national team.
Yeah.
You know what he told me? His first international travel, his first immigration stand was at the Colombo airport. So he had a very special place in his heart for Sri Lanka. And he really enjoyed every time he came on tour, or he came as a commentator, or now as the coach. He made it a point to enjoy his stay. He has a lot of friends in Sri Lanka. So yes, I mean, that is something that I discovered in Mumbai, that everybody in Mumbai loves Sri Lanka.
Yeah. I mean, it's very strange, but I remember one of my bosses, when I was working for Reckitt, he was from Calcutta, Amitabh Chatterjee, and when he was leaving Sri Lanka, we were very sad. But he said very simple one thing. He said, "Rwanta, I will be retiring in Sri Lanka." So you're so right. They love Sri Lanka. So so you did a lot of work with this lady also. I think you engaged in a lot of tourism work.
Well, she is our largest export to India. I always say she's our most important export to India, and she has carved out a very special place for us. She's raised the profile of our country, because I think we were known for tea, we are known for having nice people, we are known for our cricket, but she's the first real entrant to the one of India's most important industries. I mean, I'd say it's the most important industry of India, the best known. So actually, she's a source of pride for us.
Your Excellency, to be very honest with you, till you just now mentioned it, I never thought about it as an export. So it's an export of a service, no? And this brand is like seen all over.
Absolutely.
You like to tell a little bit about this gentleman that you met, one of the greatest gentlemen in India?
Yes, yes, one of the best known actors, an icon of Indian cinema. Even before it was called Bollywood, it was Indian cinema, and he too has very good memories of Sri Lanka. He knows he has a good fan club in Sri Lanka, and we actually, I remember what we were discussing. We were discussing an old movie of his, which came out I think in the 1980s, called Sholay. And he said, you know, he realized he had a lot of success for that movie in Sri Lanka, and he recognizes that. So he has very fond memories of us. Yes.
Your Excellency, like a country like New Zealand was totally marketed by this whole movie called Lord of the Rings. And it was like, I mean, the whole brand in New Zealand came out because of that movie. The reason why I just took your Indian experience is there some way that maybe in the UK there is an opportunity for film-based tourism opportunities in Sri Lanka?
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is, because, but at the same time, this is not an area that I haven't yet explored. I mean, in India, it's very central. You know that the Indian cinema industry is in a particular place. It's actually Bollywood, and you know you have the directors. I don't think the UK industry is organized in that way. It's much more. There are a lot of independent film producers, and there's a focus on independent directors, and it's less commercial in that sense. But at the same time, that would also give us opportunities to promote Sri Lanka as a destination for filming. But the Indian cinema industry definitely took advantage. The film Bombay Velvet was, I think, filmed almost entirely in Sri Lanka. It was a big Bollywood movie with very prominent actors, and it was filmed almost entirely in Sri Lanka because of the locational similarities of 1960s Bombay, and Colombo Fort. So you know, that Colombo Fort area was used, and we had some special locations also in Hambantota. I think where we actually got that movie done, and almost entirely in Sri Lanka.
Your Excellency, it's great that you have that experience, because I suppose post-pandemic, now that the vaccine is out, most probably once FDA gives approval, you know, I mean, maybe tourism might become actually for Sri Lanka number one with the UK, given the type of people who will come and they'll want to stay for a longer time. And of course, the income potential will be much more higher than actually a Chinese. So what did this great gentleman tell you?
Well, I spoke to him in my very limited Hindi, and he was very impressed. So I didn't know enough at the time to have a proper conversation, but I did speak in very short sentences, and asked him for a photograph, and he was quite pleased. And then the lady next to him was our High Commissioner at that time, former Foreign Secretary, Ambassador Vagishwara. So it was during a summit where the former president attended in Goa.
Your Excellency, do you feel that there's a lot of similarity of trade between the free trade agreement with India, and whether there might be a probability of a FTA with the UK, given that the EU is moving out from 2021, and then of course UK will not be part of this whole thing of the EU GSP plus kind of a platform? I mean, you like to just explain a little bit?
The first thing is, Rohantha, the EU GSP Plus has been replicated by the enhanced preferences which the UK has afforded us, and it's going to be operational from January 2021 for 3 years, and that will be assessed. It will be on a continually assessed basis, and at the same time, we have indicated to the UK authorities that it would be desirable for us to have a free trade agreement with them in order to increase two-way trade. I mean, not just for Sri Lankan exports, but also to look at value addition of UK exports to the rest of the region. I mean, given that we are also, we've got a few new projects coming up, which I'm sure you already know about, like the 400 acre property in Hambantota, where we're trying to do a pharma zone, an exclusive pharmaceutical zone.
Yeah.
And obviously, this is not just for consumption, for local consumption, it's for re-export. So, I mean, we need to attract investments with looking beyond Sri Lanka's 22 million population. So I think free trade agreements should be looked at in that spirit, not just to send our products to a market, but also to look at how we can increase and expand our manufacturing base.
Your Excellency, I mean, you said a very important point, which is that FTA should not be only just merchandising exports, but it also must include service exports. And I suppose this whole area of the education segment will fall into the service export segment. So there'll be very strong two-way trade. In fact, I mean, we are right now in discussion of whether, you know, organizations who are in the education industry can move into even marketing doctoral programs of the UK in Sri Lanka. So that would be very interesting. So
I think that would be very interesting to
this gentleman. He looks like a Bond movie, huh?
Well, he'd be very pleased that you said that. That's my husband. Yes, yes. It's sometimes hard to make that balance, but somehow, well, as you already know, I wasn't very successful in keeping the balance earlier on in life, but I think as I've grown older, I've been able to value that balance more and try to maintain that work-life balance, which is very important. And I always tell this to my younger colleagues, like not to give up on that, to ensure that we maintain a good work and life balance, because that is how we stay grounded, we stay healthy, and we can do more for a longer period of time. As we increase our life expectancy, the idea is not to increase the old age, the time spent in old age, but to actually have a longer productive life.
So how do you balance, Your Excellency, when he's a doctor, no? I mean, his practicing times are, I mean, how does he see the whole pandemic, Your Excellency?
Well, they've gone on to a like a 30% 30 to 40% physical consultations and 50 a little bit over maybe 60% 65% virtual online consultations. So that's the practice in the UK, and that's how he's the practices are operating in the UK. So that's a lot of virtual consultations.
So do you miss the, you know, that Sri Lanka is a typical, you know, social hub, no? I mean, we work a lot, but also we tend to kind of have a lot of social life, even during work time. So
absolutely.
Do you miss this kind of, I think this was a World Bank conference that you were there.
It was organized. Yeah, it was organized by women in management. Yes.
Yeah, women in management. Yes. So do you miss this kind of thing in the UK?
I mean, London is a very sociable city. There are a lot of activities, a lot of culture, a lot of programs. But unfortunately, again, due to the pandemic, that's taken a back seat. But yes, of course, we miss that. I miss that Sri Lankan context. I always miss that. That's what makes me come back home, and that's what keeps me working for Sri Lanka. So I'm always connected to Sri Lanka, wherever I am in the world.
So the good news is that we will see you in Sri Lanka soon. So do you miss your friends? Do you miss your friends?
Yes, I do.
Huh?
I do.
One is an ambassador. I mean, it was an amazing group of people. One is an ambassador in, I think, Philippines. The other one is
and the commissioner in Singapore. And we joined the Foreign Service together way back in 1998. And we've been friends since 1998, very close friends. So we're like each other's families, you know.
The High Commissioner in Singapore was a orientation guest for the postgraduate session, and I thought I need to mention that, you know, your whole batch is doing so good all over the world, and it's so nice to have friends, you know, in such high places, but yet so humble in what you do. So it's lovely. So I think it's a lesson for all the youngsters that, you know, the more you start going up in the ladder, that the more you need to start being more humble, so that then you can reach up and engage people better. So that's all I have for you that we like to basically share. And what I actually did, Your Excellency, is that I just connected the dots of what you did before you went to the UK, and then of course a little bit of this whole area of trade and commerce, which you are so much engaged in, and then a little bit about how you balance your life, and then of course your whole area of the family, and as well as your friends who are linked to Sri Lanka. And one thing I can know is that this whole all these dots connect to one simple thing, which is home, and home happens to be in Sri Lanka. So Bandula, you have you like to share, you like to ask a few questions, being the former chairman of Export Development Board. Please.
Not in not on that term. Basically, Aranta, do you have any questions to ask? Other questions, the audience question from the Excellency, because I would like to have the final question.
Kaushalya, do you have anything?
Yes, Your Excellency, we do have few questions. So let me ask that from you on behalf of the audience. The first question comes to us is from Bharati, who is joining with us. So she wants to know, what are the expectations on trade with Brexit looming?
Well, as I said, that we have the enhanced preferences that have been offered, which is exactly a replicate of the GSP Plus. And that will be in operation, because GSP Plus is in operation now this year. So from January 2021, we will have that, and it will go on for 3 years. And that will have a continuous evaluation. So we have the possibility of sending our feedback and trying to improve things. And notwithstanding that, we have also asked that we need to work on a free trade agreement.
Wonderful, thank you. And with that, Lasantha wants to know, over the years, Ceylon tea is losing its market share in the UK. What could be possible reasons, and how could we regain the UK market?
Okay. One huge element is that our marketing is not strong enough. We need to focus a little more, but that is not just for Ceylon tea, it's for all our products. It's all about brand Sri Lanka. We are we have not yet understood the concept of branding. We don't stick to a brand, we keep changing. We are not savvy. I mean, I've worked with the seafood industry also on this, and the necessity to have a branding, have ownership. I think the apparel industry has done it really well. It would probably be the only brand that has done it successfully. But on the tea, the reason is perhaps the entry of the cheaper teas into the lower end of the market spectrum. But since we still have a very strong brand value, we need to take that and start promoting the higher end teas. The higher end teas are not doing badly. Obviously the higher end market share is smaller in any product. The more exclusive market share is smaller than the mass market. Yeah. So since our priority, we've lost out in terms of pricing, we have actually gained a bit more at the higher end of the spectrum. But we can do more marketing. We need to have a more innovative marketing strategy for Ceylon tea, because it is easily our strongest brand. If you shut your eyes and you think of tea, you ask anybody anywhere in the world to shut their eyes and think of tea, and what is the brand that comes up first? It will be Ceylon tea.
Yeah.
So
actually,
we need to take a.
Actually, Your Excellency, you're spot on. I mean, I've served the tea board for almost 10 years. And that's one area that we are really focusing on this whole area of how to differentiate a brand, because our cost of manufacture is so high, and our quality of tea is good. We yet get about a $4 plus,
Yeah.
so which against the Kenyan teas and the Thailand teas, with a little bit of branding, I'm sure that will be there. And I think some of the brands like the Dilmas of the world is doing quite good. I mean, so
Yeah.
which means that the skill set is there.
Dilma, Mlesna, Bachelor, all of these brands which have
Akbars, yeah.
Akbar's, good packaging, the ones that have good packaging, good presentation, and a little bit of investment in that. You need to you need to invest in that. It's not something that will market itself. That's a lower end, but the higher end you need to invest in that a little more.
Actually,
so we
our
have two more questions. One from Gamindu. That is,
go ahead.
Sorry, doctor. Yes.
Go ahead, Kaushali.
Okay. So yes, we have this question from Gamindu where he want to know: are you in a position to predict any new post-COVID trade opportunities between UK and Sri Lanka?
Well, I'm not an astrologist, so I can't predict, but I can see that there are trends in terms of we saw in this lockdown increasing. People are actually buying pets. They're buying pets, so pet food, pet toys, pet products, exercise equipment, sportswear. I mean, these are the market segments that have seen an increase in sales. So these are areas that we need to start supplying to. We are supplying to that, bicycles and bicycle parts. So they appear insignificant, but if you look at the value and the number of items that sell, it's a huge market segment.
Right. Thank you very much. And then over to you, doctor.
No, our counterpart, Dr. Bharati, she was saying that she's also from Delhi and she also loves Sri Lanka. So I forgot to ask one question from you before I hand it over. Again, I think Kaushali, there's one more question that you had,
yes,
right?
That's coming. We have a few coming in, yes.
So what is your advice to the young Saroja? If you if you're 23 years old and you have to give advice,
you're assuming that I'm an old Saroja now. Okay.
No, you're not an old Saroja. I'm saying that you're young, 20-year-old. So what do you think? What is your advice?
One is the focus on work-life balance. One is to value the present. I think we are so much invested in where we want to go sometimes that we forget where we are. And sometimes it's an automatic investment in the future if we focus on the present. It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm going to be buying this big house in 20 years. I mean, why not enjoy what you have now and work on that? And I think that's what I would tell myself. I didn't think of a big house, but I thought, okay, career, I will do this and that, and perhaps did not focus enough on what was around me. So that's what I would say. Focus on the present as much as possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Kaushali?
Yes. So we do have the last question for the day, I believe, is from David. So, Your Excellency, will a post-Brexit UK present new opportunities or any additional challenges for Sri Lankan exports or business in the UK?
Well, as I said, for the next 3 years, we will enjoy the same privileges. So we will have, at least for now, we will have the same opportunities that we had with the EU. And I think that is a good standpoint to build from. So from there, we can build more. And I think the post-Brexit UK would be a more outward-looking entity, because they are interested in forging bilateral trading partnerships with other regions. So I think that poses a lot of promise for Sri Lanka.
Chairman, your last question.
Okay, thank you. No, it's just a comment on the question both. In fact, Excellency, you have very well demonstrated the excellence that you have in your job, and also you have your depth, and what you express is basically you you are very well deserved for this post. Actually, that is the first comment that I want to express. And you also have evolved many ways. To be very frank with you, because we were together, so we can see the real the development in you as well. So my question is not that hard, but what I'm trying to say in this way. Are you struggling to be in Saroja or rather than Excellency's role? How do you balance it? Oh, you are both ways comfortable being Saroja and Excellency role. So I just want to know.
Well, I mean, as much as I'm Excellency, I'm always Saroja. So it's not. But when I leave my office, I'm Saroja. So I remember that.
Thank you very much.
Do people mistake you for Indian?
Well, sometimes, yes. Sometimes.
Kaushali, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much from my side, Excellency. It's a great moment that we spend, and a lot of things, and overall 360-degree what you are expressing in terms of economic and all the other matters. But this is a great learning for our youngsters. This is what the ultimate objective. Looking at you and taking some lessons and to practice in your normal day-to-day life, more than the education excellence that we are expecting from the students, because that is one of our key aspects that APIT is practicing, the leadership qualities. We want to bring leaders there. You very well demonstrated the leadership qualities where our students can learn. So thank you very much for being with us. Offline we can talk later on. The Excellency, I think thank you very much for your time. So I think over to you, Dr. Rohanta and Kaushali, to sum up.
Yes. So thank you so very much, Your Excellency, for that wonderful thought sharing session and for that wonderful insight that you have shared, especially for the students who are in our postgraduate program, and of course the others who have joined us today. It'll be an amazing motivation, amazing inspiration to see you in there. And I'm sure there's so many dreaming to be there in this position or join in a different country and to, enjoy traveling and enjoy the life luxuriousness that you gain as a matter of getting these qualifications and experience, and of course having this much of networks. So thank you so much on behalf of Happy family and our students for sharing this time with us, and we hope we will have some opportunity to have a chat again back with you in the future. So with that, thank you so much again, and we would like to end the session for the day. So thank you so much for joining, and hope to meet you, all of you, again, back again in another session. So from here, good night.
Good night. Stay safe. Bye then.
Stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much.